Hello, friends and patriots and people who don't know they're patriots that are patriots. This is Kevin Miles. I'm making this video partially in response to my good friend Steve Motley, who was kind enough to shout out a video that I made about T.I. and asked some of his followers to check it out, and they did, and I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for joining and subscribing to the channel. I took some time to really think about, what contribution can I make during this very interesting time in the history of human history, in the history of human beings. This is a very, very interesting time. It's an inflection point. Change is upon us. Everyone knows it. Most people want change. The disagreement comes in about, well, what change do we need? Who should be leading it? What information is true? What can we trust? What can we believe? Who's good? Who's not? So it's a time where clarity is at a premium. And so I'll just tell you how I sort of find myself in the seat where I'm speaking to you. I'm just a regular guy. Grew up in a military family, moving all over the world, and I guess I kind of see the lens. You can see the military and the need for militaries in all kinds of different ways. I mean, some people are pacifists. They just think the idea of that is not good. But I can tell you from growing up in the military family, those are just people like you and me. They're from your neighborhoods, from your towns, and they joined because they wanted to do something positive. They wanted to make the world better somehow. So that's the people. That's kind of true no matter where you go. The people that you meet, you find, even the ones who you think are the most not like you, if you could be a fly on the wall in their home when they're having dinner with their family, it wouldn't be that different from you and your family. The jokes might be different, the accents might be different, what they're eating is going to be different, but it's still the idea of family. This is just God in expression. This is sort of the feeling of having of love is something that just wants to be an expression. Love wants to express itself. It's a natural thing. And what most people know, other than that they want some sort of change that they think is a good idea, they also they just people just don't know what's true and what's not true. So the idea of discernment becomes a skill that everyone needs to have. And so I just thought, well, let me just share what my method is and how I decide if something's true or not true. Or if I'm going to give it credibility. I mean, start with the idea that we know in history lies have been told to control what people think. We know that. Everybody can agree. In history, lies have been told to control what people think. And the truth of the matter is, all wars are really wars of technology. It's just that the technology changes. I mean, there was a time when a bow and an arrow, that was the best technology. And whoever made the best bows and arrows and knew how to shoot them the straightest was going to win. Right now, we're in the technological age, where you and I can speak to millions of people from home. In my culture, we call it the crib, from the crib. You can be at the crib saying what you know about something. And this is a very powerful thing. So the battle for what people believe has never been greater than right now. And how do we know what to believe? Well, here's my method. I mean, one of the skills that you learn from being a military brat, whenever you move, we move like every 3 years. And there were some times where we lived there for only 1 year. I lived in LA for 1 year in the ninth grade. I lived in New York in 1976 during the bicentennial year in the fifth grade. And other places I was for 3 years. Kansas, South Carolina, Germany, for 3 years in some of these places. And what you have to learn when you first move somewhere is what's true and what's not true. The rules may say you can go here and you can go there. But there are unwritten rules that everyone also knows. And so you have to learn what to trust, what not to trust, what's true, what's not true. And it just becomes a way of thinking. And then when I got into entrepreneurship, it's all about the research. The reason why you want to, and even now, I mean, I consume a large amount of data. News, opinion programs, mainstream, and people in their underwear at home making a video. And some of the people I get the most value from are people like Steve Motley. So I've been watching him for a long time, because even though I may not agree with everything he says, one, I know he believes everything he's saying. I trust him. Do you trust your news sources? Can you trust them? Well, what's their track record like? So you have to start thinking objectively. What's their track record like? If the news tells you 10 things and all of them prove not to be accurate, does it matter if they're doing it on purpose or not? The point is, you can't rely on that information. There's a saying in, garbage in, garbage out. Any process that you have that you're designing, if you put garbage in it, that's what's going to come out. A recipe, if you use crappy ingredients, that's how your food's going to taste. The better your ingredients are, the better the outcome. And this is regardless of how good of a chef you may be. It's just garbage in, garbage out. So you want the data going into your mind to be accurate data. And to do that, you need sort of objective measures, So I believe what is happening is that, a lot of the public psyche has been sort of hijacked by, Dr. King. He went to the same school I went to. It's called Morehouse College in Atlanta. And when he was there, he was just such a remarkable. People don't realize what an intellect that guy was. He was a great speaker. And he obviously had a very spiritual worldview. He loved everybody. He wanted to see everybody do well. All that was cool. But people sort of underestimate his intellect, like just how brilliant the guy was. And he wrote a piece, I'll put it down below this video. He wrote a piece called The Purpose of an Education. He wrote that, he went to Morehouse when he was 15 years old. That's when he went as a freshman at 15. So by the time he was around 17 or 18, he was a junior. Yeah, a flock of geese or duck. But anyway, he wrote a piece called The Purpose of an Education. And he specifically said that in the pulpit, the platform, he called it, he said the pulpit, the platform, meaning he's talking about the church, what the pastor's saying, what's on the news. He said is filled with half-truths, and that the purpose of education was to be able to discern what's true from propaganda. from what's not true. Half truth. Now, so this is advice is still relevant today because it's still true that, people are saying half truths. Sometimes they just don't know. And so you have to have a certain discipline about the way you process information. Be neutral. You're neutral. You're not predisposed to believe something just because someone says it. When they say it, you take it in, and then you should be asking, is it true? Is it true? And if you ask that question, is it true? That's going to lead you to a deductive reasoning process that some people call scientific thinking. And Dr. King refers to this. You have to have logical thinking. That means, 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, what can we do with 2? All right, let's take 2 and put it with something else. But we know what 2 is because we know 1 plus 1 is 2. What has happened is there are people who believe, for example, that somehow, because there's two narratives. Either you think Donald Trump is the devil or you think he's a saint. And there's people in between as well, but that's the two main narratives, that Donald Trump is a good person doing God's work. That's one group of people. And there's another group of people who have been essentially, with half-truths, programmed to believe he's bad. Now here's the other thing that's going on. You also have to keep track of all of the variables. Because usually when propaganda, the way it works, it kind of focuses on one, it tells some things that are true, and then it slips in something it causes you to make a leap in logic. The Russians are trying to hack the election. Somebody from Trump's campaign knows a Russian or was at a party with a Russian, or the truth of the matter was targeted by someone. He was framed to look like he was close to Russians. And then the leap they ask you to make is, therefore Donald Trump is in bed with the Russians. He's bad. When you really look at all of the evidence, you realize he's actually been harder on Russia than anybody. Russia wanted to take its gas into Europe. And when we became energy independent, we essentially took the European market, a lot of what Russia was counting on. We got it because Trump is a pro-business minded person. I mean, he's a business genius. So it doesn't matter what people say about him. When I say he's a business genius, people say, "Oh, well, he inherited this money, and he did." Let me explain something to you. You can debate whether he got $1 million, or $5 million, $10 million. Turning $10 million into billions of dollars is still a very neat trick. That's pretty freaking good. If someone gave you $10 million, can you turn it into billions of dollars? Maybe you can, But if you do, I'll take my hat off to you too. So the point is, all of these ideas that are being really implemented by a government that has private sector best practices, which is completely different from government best practices. To say, and that's not to be anti-government. It's just acknowledging the truth, So what am I really getting at? We're gonna have to learn how to teach our neighbors and friends how to discern truth from propaganda. Because you can't just see what's happening now is you have two sides. People know what they believe. Some people really believe they're like totally against Trump. And then there are people who are with Trump. You're not going to convince the other side it can't be a conflict-ridden exchange. It has to be neighborly. It has to be, you have to remember when you didn't know something that you now know. There was a point at which you didn't know either. And so what we need to do is talk to our people and just share our own stories. Like for me, it was just 9/11. When 9/11 happened, that's when I said, something's going on here. That's like everything they're telling us is not true. Because I just don't think that 3 buildings can be knocked down with 2 airplanes, if that's what happened. The point is that third building, nothing hit it. Now, a person can call you whatever they want to call you. You can label that anything you want. I label it, it's common sense. It's common sense to know that nothing hit that building and it fell at the rate of free fall. Exactly like anytime you see a controlled demolition. You can watch a controlled demolition and it falls like it just falls. How could that happen? Nothing even hit it. So it's sort of like I mean, even that would not have brought those other 2 buildings down. They were full of steel, and Donald Trump knew it immediately. He's a builder. Anyone who knows physics and knows that kind of construction, they knew immediately that's not the truth. So then you have to. This is where the deductive reasoning comes in. If someone's telling that kind of lie, why are they doing it? And the answer is so they can keep control over what you think. There's something they want to do that they know you will not go for. So they need to make you think about, a lot of things are true that aren't true. They need to make you think a lot of things. So here's the narrative. Here's how their narrative goes. There's a pandemic happening that, at this point, they're not even arguing who created it and why they created it. They're just saying it's happening and it's real and people are dying. It's a true statement, but it's a dishonest way of presenting the information to say people are dying. People die every day. Everyone alive is going to die. The question is how many. And when you look at the math, especially the new CDC revised numbers, which is see what's happening is these scientists, they're not stupid. They may be dishonest, some of it, but that doesn't make them stupid. They understand that over time, history is going to look and say, wow, you were really off. You said 2.5 million people in America were going to die from this virus. 2.5 million people were going to die. Even by that estimate, even if you accepted the $185,000 number, you would have to consider whoever predicted that either to be dishonest or incompetent. Those are the only 2 choices. You can't be off by that much. You can't be off by that many thousands of percents by accident, or you can't be competent and be that wrong. It's just impossible. And people who they know what they're doing, so the point is, but now they came out and said it's only 6% of the 185,000 actually only died from this virus, which means all of the other ones, you can imply that they may, maybe that had nothing to do with why they died. So 6%, now you're talking about something so much, and even if it was 185, that would be about the rate of flu. Okay, so something that's very flu-like kills the same people, much, much older people, over 78, over 80 years old. That's the people who, they're vulnerable to the flu also. The flu can kill them also. So if you covered the flu like you covered this, people would be just as scared of the flu. If you told them they better wear a mask and this and that, and if they don't, being irresponsible, this is a psyop, okay? This is all something designed, and so there's all of these different things. See, they're taking something very real to black people, like police violence. That's a real thing to black people, okay? I don't care you can tout any statistic you want to tout. Let me tell you part of the reason why it's so real. It's all you see on the news. When you go to these local towns, they're hardly ever talking about anything positive. But if any one event happens, it's blanketed 24/7. So even if it was happening seldom, your perception of it would be it's happening all the time. Now that's your reality. The only reality is the perception of reality. So if you think something's real, it's real to you. And all of your decisions and your worldview and everything else you believe is built on that perception of reality. And this is why it's very important for us not to just shoot at each other. You have to understand, people who believe what they believe, they came by it in some honest fashion. Sloppy thinking, yes, but also trickery. There are people who are experts at manipulating what people think. Everybody's not trained to say, let's just treat all information like it's not true. Until we prove, we need to validate that it's true before we decide to believe it. If everyone just implemented that one discipline, we wouldn't be having this problem. Because everyone would say, there's no reason for you to be closing all of these schools when children don't even get the thing that you're saying we're supposed to be so scared of. Children don't even get, the data doesn't even support that. So why are you abusing these kids psychologically by closing their schools? For, this is going to impact people for generations. So it's the adults, the grown people. You really can't afford to just believe everything you hear anymore. That's a luxury that we don't have. Because you have to ask yourself, if somebody's telling stories, if somebody lied about 9/11, 3,000 American people killed, and it's all based on these lies, what else are they prepared to do? What else are they doing? It just, you don't have to believe in conspiracy theories. You don't have to believe in anything. That's the point. Don't believe in anything. Trust. Don't even trust, but verify. Verify and then trust, okay? Verify and then trust. Some people say trust but verify. That's just a nice way of saying I don't believe it until I know it's true. And I think that's really what we need to be doing, But don't demonize the people who don't know what you know, because that is just making it worse. It's Steve was talking about frequency and vibration and energy. He's absolutely correct. Fear is a lower vibrational energy. All of that stuff, anger, fear, jealousy, these are all fear-based ideas. You want to stay up here. You want you want to be in joy. When you're in joy, the things that occur to you don't occur to you when you're in fear. There's a deliberate effort to keep everybody in fear. You got to watch out for this one. You got to watch out for that one. And they're going to show it to you. They're going to show you the thing that you fear the most. They're going to show you the 300-pound black guy beating up a white woman. And they're going to show it to you over and over and over again, because they want you to believe it's coming to your next door. It's happening everywhere right now. That's a lie too. Most 300-pound black men would step in front of a car to protect someone else, okay? That's who they are in their heart. They're not just, oh, let me go out here and do something to somebody. And I'm not saying that this, the violence that we see is wrong. All of it. Violence is wrong, And, but what's happening is the whole divide and conquer. Divide and conquer still works. Everything that unifies us makes us stronger. And that's why I'm making this video. I mean, I know my culture, and I know military culture. And I've lived in other parts of the world. I know other cultures, how they see what they see, why they believe what they believe, where they're vulnerable, Black people have been in a state of, black people are the most vulnerable to fear because we have been terrorized. Slavery was a terroristic system where your children were torn out of your arms and sold off and you never saw them again. That was just 155 years ago. That's not that long. That's not that long. But even after that, when the Klan rose up and all this other stuff happened, black people were being terrorized the whole time. They're not that hard to scare. And if you label somebody as a racist, that's who black people are the most scared of. So you have to understand they're being victimized. My people are being victimized by these lies, you know. And now this coming narrative that there's some sort of race war, it's not true. They're trying to make it true. Words have power. You can speak something into being. If enough people start believing it, it becomes real. And so we just need to all stay in this sort of high vibration and understand we're not at war with each other. Like I said, if you went to most people's homes and you watched them have dinner, even if you watch them have a family argument, it's just like yours. Somebody's doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and people want to see them be on the right track, so they go at it a little bit. But it's all from, it can be from love. It can also be from fear. We don't need to be afraid of someone who the American people elected to be president. The narrative is somehow that he's illegitimate. He isn't. He didn't cheat. Doesn't matter if you agree with him or not. That's our system. If Americans vote for someone and they get in office, we're supposed to respect that. That never happened in this administration. Never. He was not allowed to govern based on the fact that he was elected. So this is really an attack on the system, on the democracy and the democratic system that we have. It may be imperfect, but what's better? And this is getting at the heart of the matter. There are people who believe that the communist system is better than the system we have. And I believe they have been somewhat secretly marching towards the kind of government that sits on top of the people and the freedoms are eroded. What freedoms are eroded? Well, why don't we some of us are not that young. We remember when the idea of freedom of speech, it was a core, fundamental American value. Even people who didn't like each other and disagreed agreed on that. That's why, because if you don't have speech, you can't have freedom. How can you be free if you can't have speech? If you can't say what you believe, and you can't do that now. The public forum, the public square, remember, it's technology. That's online. And you can't say certain things online. You can't ask certain questions online. Even in America. That's the alarm bell should be going off about that. Because whether today, we may not agree. You may believe one thing and I may believe another. But tomorrow, today my guy might be in power. Tomorrow your person's going to be in power. Both of us should want, if my guy messes up, you should want to have the right to say whatever you want to say. Say, hey, we got to check this person. They said this and it wasn't true. That's a good thing. Everybody should be doing that. But let's let everyone have the ability to do that. Don't decide, well, we're not going to let these people's voice be heard. We're going to come up with all kinds of reasons. But at the end of the day, either you have free speech or you don't. And the truth of the matter is we don't have free speech right now. Now that should alarm you so much that anything that's going more in that direction is to be avoided. Do you want less speech than you have now? And some people are looking at the shiny object. The shiny object is, let's take Trump and get rid of him. That's the shiny object. That they're focusing on this little shiny object, not knowing that as soon as that happens, you may get your wish. You want it to be like China? Go ask the Chinese, why do you think they're trying to get over here so much? How many people do you know trying to get the hell out of the United States and move to China? And I'm not saying anything bad about their country. I'm simply saying that most people want to be free. Even a little bird wants to be free, right? You've heard that saying before. My father used to talk about that, Even a bird wants to be free, as they say. So whatever unifies us brings us together, and whatever divides us makes us weaker. So we just need to we need to help people, and just by telling, we can just tell our own stories. Mine is, when 9/11 happened, I started asking a hell of a lot of questions. I listened to what Cynthia McKinney was saying, and I was like, now that's a righteous person. She's a patriot. Just because it just means you want the best for your country and the people who live in the country. It doesn't mean you're anti some other country. Everyone can be a patriot. I mean, it's not loving your country. The idea of loving your country, that's what the Olympics is all about. We don't hate, France because we're playing them in tennis, but we want to win. We want to win. And if they win, you know what? We're happy for them. And, we'll get them next time. This spirit of competition isn't bad, So, but you have people, there was an important development a few days ago. Andrew Young made a video where he essentially argued. Here's what he said. He said there were four things that were. He's 88 years old. He used to be the ambassador to the United Nations. He was the mayor in Atlanta a couple times. He was a U.S. congressman from Atlanta. He was a lieutenant to Martin Luther King Jr. And what he was known for in the civil rights movement was Andy was the one who could go talk to everybody. He could talk to all sides and find some common ground. But he says in this video, which I'll put below, because I disagree with him. He says that there are four things happening that have never happened in his lifetime. He said the first thing is we have this pandemic and people are dying. And because of that, we have this economic crisis that's happening, and the largest budget deficit increase in the history of America, and that's a bad thing. And then he says there's also a race problem, crisis. He called it a race crisis. There's a race crisis. And then he said the fourth thing is there's a climate crisis. And he cited the fires in California and the and the hurricanes that have come and that are still coming. And he's saying because of all of these four things, what we really need is kind of a CEO of the planet. That's exactly what he said. He said we kind of need a CEO of, and he says someone with the right kind of temperament. Someone who knows that they don't have all the answers and who will seek out the answers from the scientists and the other experts. So here's the okie, this is the okie doke coming, okay, in my opinion. And I'm not ascribing any nefarious purposes to Andrew Young. He's a great man, a great leader. I know him from Atlanta, and he's always been gracious and wonderful. But I just think he's mistaken. And so, I mean, that's the other thing. We need to be able to put the ideas on the table and talk about the ideas. I'm not talking about Andy. I'm talking about the idea that Andy just put forward when he said, because of these four things, we need to pick somebody with a certain type of personality to be the CEO of the world. That's a very specific ideology. And he's saying he said America first doesn't work. No one country, it doesn't belong to one country. He is making a globalist argument for a new world order. And he just did it last week. That's what he's saying. And I am saying, and he may believe that that's the best thing, because I first say, well, let's just say, is this stuff even true? Is it really a pandemic? Well, CDC just said only 6% of the 185,000 deaths are actually related just to that virus. So that kind of not, the first thing isn't really even happening. That's not true. But everyone believes it's happening because the way it's being sold and the way it's been plastered on the television That still doesn't change the numbers. Even if you take the 185,000, divide that by how many people are in America, and look at what a small number it is. It's not even as deadly as the flu. Have you ever been told to stay home for 5 months because of the flu? No, you have not. Have you ever been told to wear a mask everywhere you go because of the flu? No, you have not. Now, I just gave you the numbers. Take the doggone numbers they gave you. Take 185,000 and divide it by however many people you think are in America, 330 million, something like that. And see that number you come up with. And then compare that number to the death rate by flu. And you will see that it's less. Okay? So if that's true, why are we closing the schools? Why are we putting 50% of one of the largest employers in this country is the restaurant industry? 50% of them are going out of business, never to return. Okay? Why is all of that happening? Let me tell you the theory that fits the facts. All of these things are being orchestrated. The so-called race war is being orchestrated. All of this civil unrest in the streets is being orchestrated. They picked a group who's the most susceptible to fear, black people. They created an organization called Black Lives Matter because black lives do matter. The purity of, believe me, most of the people in that organization have extremely good intentions. They're being hijacked. It's just the okie doke. It's a trick. It's a trick. And the trick is to make you think, oh, there's this race war, we're unsafe, you can't even hug your neighbor anymore, you can't go to the store, all of this stuff, and Donald Trump is bad. Even if you look at those issues, when he closed the country down from flights coming to China, everybody said he was a bigot and a racist. And this Dr. Fauci himself said that saved lots of lives. Either he saved lives or he didn't. We just need to align ourselves to truth. Not your truth, not my truth, the truth. The one that we can objectively prove with things like facts. And if you think the facts don't matter, you are going to fall into the trap that Dr. King warned you not to fall into when he said half truths. That's exactly what a half truth sounds like the whole truth if you don't know it. And that's the point. When Andy says there's a pandemic and it's killing people, that's a half truth. The whole truth is it's not killing that many people compared to the flu. And therefore, the idea that should be at the top of the list of stuff we should be afraid of is false. We don't need to be afraid of this virus. We need to boost our immune system, eat healthy, take our vitamins, wash our hands, do common sense things. But what we don't need to do is kill 10 times as many people. I listened to Sarah Westall's video, which was excellent yesterday. And the research that a lot of scientists who are being censored. See, remember back to that free speech thing. It's not just me and your speech and what we think and you and your friends' argument is. The scientists with honor and information and knowledge are being silenced. They're the ones who can protect our public health because they're willing to do it. There are people in this world who you can't frighten. And you can't buy them off. Some of them, and people at great risk to themselves, are standing up and saying, look, this is what I know, and this is what... Those doctors that talked about hydrochloroquine, I mean, we got states that were outlawing the use of it. When you have studies coming out of places like France where it shows it's extremely effective. So it's like you can't even agree on if the standard should be, does it work? Is it safe? That drug is over 60 years old. They give it to pregnant women. It's so safe. But all of a sudden, the TV started telling you it's not safe. That's how dumb they think the public is. That they can make up anything, say anything, and the public will just swallow it whole. And a lot of the public will, but some of us will not. Some of us say, that doesn't really fit, you know. See, in business, when you're starting a startup, like I work in the startup business, if your research is wrong, you're going to lose money. Your employees won't get paid. You're going to lose a business because you believe something that wasn't true. You know, like there was a company called Digital Equipment Corporation back in the day. They were big, man. They were like second to IBM, And the CEO was famous. You study this case study in business school. The CEO decided that he didn't think that everyone would want a personal computer. In fact, he thought that was a silly idea, that every human being would want their own computer. And based on his lack of awareness, his inability to see what was really right in front of him. That's how Microsoft rose up. And, you don't see Facebook making the same mistakes. When a company takes off, like Instagram, they go buy it. They go buy it. They write the check. Look at what's happening with TikTok. Everybody wants to buy it. I heard Kanye West is looking at it. So you got to align yourself to what's really, really, really true. And then build your business around the truth, because eventually the truth is gonna prevail. And people just be asking right now some very difficult, because back to Andy's little video. So he then concludes, he says, and this election is going to determine a lot about the future. So what he's really telling you is, if you want a Chinese-style government, something that they can then put a global CEO on top of, someone with the right temperament. He didn't say the right policies, the right personality. So this is part of the way you get duped, is that when you hear them, they always focus on personalities, temperament. Trump is this, Trump is that. He said shithole countries, blah, 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 blah. And I do this, I kind of do this thought experiment, and I say, ask yourself, this is a system. We're in a system. This system is thousands of years old. We agreed that everybody wants change, right? People want change. The people in the street want change. The people who, support the president, they want change. So everybody can agree we want change. Why do we need change if the system that's been in place for thousands of years is so good? We wouldn't need change. We wouldn't need change. So then ask yourself, who is fighting change and who wants change? And what change are they fighting and what change do they want? Andy is saying he wants change. He says America First doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work. Because now what you need is, it's just because he also talked about having one leader of the planet. And this gets into an area called exopolitics. Everyone understands that we're not alone in the universe. I mean, that's not something being boomed out through the regular TV yet, but we all been watching Ancient Aliens. We've all had our own experiences, and we all know we're not alone. And that's kind of implicit in what Andy's saying. We need a leader of the planet. Why? Because it's our time to take our place in the League of Planets. But the question is, who's going to control the government that's sitting on top of the people? Who's going to be on top of them? The globalists that are shooting at Trump, they want to be the ones sitting on top of all of that. And they think China is a good model. But maybe you should just do some research on what it's like to be living in China, where they tell you how many kids to have and not to have. You can say this, you can't say that. Putting technology filters in place so you can't even see certain things. You're in a reality that's not even real because it's being filtered so that you don't see certain things. I like the freedom model better. To me, I like the Constitution. I thought was pretty good document. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That sounds pretty good to me. I like that model better than a global CEO with a good temperament who will listen to the experts. Let me tell you about experts. When they did the Tuskegee experiment on black people in Alabama, letting them deliberately inflicting them with syphilis and then not medicating them when they could have to see what would happen, those were experts too. When you think of the people committing experiments on Jews in Germany, those were experts too. It's not about experts, it's about truth. Can you trust these experts? And the best way to do it, remember, with the data, look at all of the data. Look at all of it. Don't be afraid. I don't care if it's on CNN. I'm willing to look at it, but then I'm going to compare it with what I see on Laura Ingraham. I'm going to listen to what she has to say. And she tends to have really good guests on her show. And she allows a debate to happen like we used to when we were all focused on trying to get the truth. Now we're just trying to get the other one on the other side. Everything that divides us makes us weaker. Everything that unites us makes us stronger. And we need to go back to the basics. The reason the Constitution is a great document, is because it's based on something objective that it gets at the heart of what we all want, what all families want. You want a chance to get ahead for your family. You want to live in safety and peace. If you're going to control, if a few people are going to control a lot of people, you have to make those people think everything you're doing is in their interest, even when it's not. And the only way to do that is what Dr. King said, propaganda, half truths. So now look for all the truth. Look for the whole truth. Get the data from everywhere you can get it from, and then sift and weigh, discern. Ask yourself, see, the idea Andy's saying is very paternalistic. We need someone with a good personality that knows he doesn't know everything, and he'll get it from he's saying you're too dumb to know what's good for you and your family. You need a global CEO to make you feel good. And we all know who he's talking about. That's why it's focused on personalities, and because that's been the narrative the whole time. He doesn't have the temperament. Trump doesn't have the temperament. I think he has seasoned into, and I always believed he would. He has talent. He was always going to get better. He made a rookie mistake when he let them take out General Flint. That was a rookie mistake, but it was costly. But anyway, so thank you guys for joining me and letting me sort of go through some of this. Just how do we discern? How do we talk to our neighbors? How do we bring people together? Even in the face of all of these moving parts that seem disjointed, but actually it's a coordinated effort. Steve is right. He touched on this today on this video he made this morning. That the lie only lasts. It's like a dark room. When you turn the light on, the darkness it has to be somewhere else. So we'll keep doing our part. We'll make our videos, and we need everybody needs to just chime in. Chime in, and because the new technology is this sort of social media and information, while that lasts. And, at some point the internet may go out. What are we going to do then? Well, we had better be organized with our neighbors. And we should have already had these conversations so that when it happens, it won't be a surprise. It's not too late to get started for that right now. People on your street, people in your neighborhood, people in your family, people from your school, and all you're really saying is let's try to let's. I don't like that Chinese system that much. I mean, I'm not interested in that. I like the freedom model. I think we can all win under that model. But it should be a wake up call even to patriots. There, people who call themselves patriots. It's a big group of people. But some of our patriots, we're not really. We got to be concerned with all of the people. If we see our black neighbors being gunned down, we need to have some concern about that. We can support the police and call out bad behavior. Because when you can't, then you seem like there's no place for people who are really just like you and your family. You wouldn't want somebody killing people from your community with impunity either, as if their lives didn't matter. You wouldn't like that. So you need to it's not just about the people that are just like you. It's about the Americans. We're all the same as Americans. As Americans, we're all the same. And so we need to we need to have room for people who aren't exactly like us, that we can still say, hey, you know what? This person caught a bad break and that wasn't fair. And I'm willing to say, hey, that's not fair, If it's not fair, it's not fair. It's not about race. It's not about religion. It's not about political parties. It's about right and wrong, true and false. And when we get away from that, when we allow ourselves to believe things that aren't true, then we become susceptible to propaganda too. It goes, it's enough learning to go around. We all need to learn and expand our horizon, reach out with our hand in brotherhood and sisterhood with our fellow human beings, even the ones who aren't like us. And that is going to be because they can only succeed if we stay asleep and if we stay divided and if we don't use good methods and we believe half truths. All that has to happen for this to work. And Andy said himself, he said, I don't think we're ready, but we don't have a choice. We have to do this now. He's not just speaking for himself. I don't know where he got that from. I don't know if that's just his assessment at 88 years old. He thinks the best thing for us is a CEO with a good personality. I'm just saying I don't agree with that. I kind of like the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We can argue over how that happens. We can argue over what's happy for you and what's happy. We can argue over all of that. But that overall framework, that's what's going to save us. We need to understand what's being offered to us because they're not going to tell you, do you mind taking a forced vaccine? Do you mind if we socially track you with a social score? Just like your credit. Imagine your credit, but now it's not just. Imagine if they take your spending habits, which is a reflection. Your credit is a reflection of how well you handle your financial affairs. If you don't pay your bills on time, you will have bad credit. But they want to take a credit type system and apply it to what you say online and what you don't say and what you think and what you agree with and what you don't agree with. And based on that, that's going to limit your mobility. That's going to limit your ability to get a job, get a promotion, be accepted. Like they're using technology, artificial intelligence, that can see all of the data. And you're just data now. What you believe and what you don't believe is just data. Either it helps the empire or it hurts the empire. And once they can reduce it to that, if it hurts the empire, good luck for you. That's the system Andy and them are offering you with this Chinese model. They're saying, that's the road that you're going down. And, you may want change. But the question is, what's the best way to do it? The best way to do it is to use the system that we have that's allowed this country to survive all of these years. Even as people shifted. People supported Vietnam. They did support Vietnam. The argument was had. The soldiers went, the soldiers died. Some of them came back. Some of them came back and they weren't that great because of the trauma of it. This allowed us, within the framework of our Constitution, to have the debate about is this good or not. And now the people are kind of at a place where we don't like the idea of spending $6 trillion on war, killing 500,000 innocent women and men in the Middle East. We don't want to see all that happen because of lies. That's what Donald Trump's saying. If you really listen to him, that's what he's saying. I don't like these interventionist wars. We're not the police of the world. All of these different things. This is actually what the progressives used to believe. You know, so-called progressives used to believe. But that whole movement has been sort of hijacked. And it's sort of like a trickery that's going on, you know. So even though you may think, oh, I'm supporting black people because I'm anti-Trump, you've been hacked. Your mind has been hacked. You're not using good logic, and you aren't paying attention to the details. And this is, I don't mean this in an accusatory way. I'm simply saying it's like somebody who does their homework and someone who doesn't. If you do your homework when you go to class, you can speak with authority because you did your homework. You know what you're talking about. Okay? The other people show up in class and they don't know what they're talking about, but it doesn't stop them from talking. So it's our job, and this was our tradition at Morehouse. You know, at Morehouse, man, you come to class and you're not prepared, you're gonna get challenged, you're gonna get embarrassed. You better be prepared. You better be ready. And that's why I'm really hoping that some of my Morehouse brothers, because a lot of them have also been, they're not paying attention to what Dr. King said about these half-truths, especially in the media. I mean, he was talking about this. Do you imagine? He was 17 years old when he wrote that. Okay, it was 1947 or so, and he already knew the dangers of propaganda and half truths and how it tends to permeate everywhere. He said the pulpit, because everyone is a human. If that pastor is watching CNN 24 hours a day, believe me, he doesn't know what's going on at all. He's been duped. You know, and if you're watching that and you think that's all true, just ask, have they been accurate? Look at the big stories over the years. They were going to impeach him. They had all this evidence. He did this with the Russians, and there was evidence. You haven't seen it yet. That should make you pause and say, how can I keep believing them without even doing my homework? You shouldn't be. Don't do it without do your homework, and if you reach a conclusion, then you can then make a good argument. I can make an argument that these masks make no sense. Closing the schools makes no sense. Killing the economy makes no sense. It does make sense if what you want to do is scare all of the people into accepting something they would never accept. Let's beat China. That's not a good idea unless you believe all of these other things are so out of control. The race war is happening, and first of all, that's bullshit. They're conflating issues. They're showing you information in a dishonest way to get a reaction out of you because they think you're stupid. You know, they think you're dumb. And you're also probably an honest person, and you would never do something like what they're doing. There's a saying, evil will do what good won't do. So if you're good, you can't even imagine that anyone is like that, but they are. There are people who, because it's about power and control and money, and people will do a lot to keep that, they will do a lot, So all the people who are regular people, they got more in common with you than they do. It doesn't matter what side they think you're on. Their interest and your interest is the same. You want your family to be safe, you have opportunity, and you want to be free. You want to be free. Nobody's saying the most freedom in the world is in China. So why are people like Andy Young essentially selling us a Chinese model? Maybe he doesn't know that's what it is, but when you say that, it's not about the country anymore, you're saying the idea of sovereignty is dead. There is no more sovereignty. We just need one government, and a nice guy at the top to tell us which experts need to know better than we do about what kind of lives we should be living and what's acceptable or not acceptable. That global nice CEO, is going to make us all feel good. Then he's going to tell us who the experts are, and then we should just listen to that. I would trust a person with no education that was honest before I would trust some so-called expert. Because I know this person wants what I want. They just want to be free and safe and happy. I trust that person. And that's really the idea of a jury of your peers. That's the central idea of that. They're not going to screw you over because they don't want to get screwed over. So anyway, that's my show for today, and I got some links below. He talked about the fire as being one of them, the fires in LA. So I'm going to put a couple of links below that so you can see what some of the fire chiefs in California said they thought was happening. That stuff wasn't natural. All of this has been an orchestrated plan, and you won't start to see it until you start asking. Just ask, is it true? Doesn't matter who said it. I don't care if Andy said it or not. I love Andy, and I mean that sincerely. But even Andy saying something, his idea has to stand on its own. I don't care that Andy's saying it, And I don't think Dr. King and them did not raise generations to come behind them to just be susceptible to propaganda. I mean, they don't like that either. I don't know why he's saying whatever he's saying, but he's saying it. And so I feel like we need to say, I don't think that's right. That's okay. That don't make me anti-Andy. It just makes me pro-truth. I'm pro-truth, and I'm not saying he's not. But he may not be. He might be watching too much CNN too. So anyway, thank you all for checking in. Subscribe and share this video if you think it will add value to someone's life. And we'll see you soon.